Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Morning, all.
Morning.
A lot of Harlem, rich in history and in culture, and we're looking forward to really bringing it. It's going to be called Melvin's 50 because it's at 50 Broad Street.
This is JW. Good morning, everybody.
Morning, JW.
Morning, JW.
Across these.
Wow, Ted.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, Marv.
Morning.
Morning, everybody. Bob Partridge here.
Morning, Bob.
In progress.
Morning.
Churchy, are you in Florida?
Sorry?
Are you in Florida?
Yeah, right.
I thought you were heading out of town.
No. Yeah, I did. I went up to Nub's Knob with the kids. I actually got on skis for the first time before my stroke and made it down the hill twice.
Sounds like fun.
Not really. No.
Did you give anybody else a stroke while you were skiing?
I think my oldest daughter was taping it as I was going down, and the grandkids were all a little bit leery.
As long as they stayed behind you, you probably are all right.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I think I saw that video. You're a TikTok star now. You got over 1 million views on that.
Well, the right leg still doesn't work the right way.
Someplace else.
New meaning.
Maybe
to
you
the
should
term
do
bunny
tubing,
hill,
Mike.
I'm sorry?
Maybe you should do tubing. Just get the inner tube, slide down that way.
Don't put it in my kid's head.
Hey, Mike, you know what the 3 most feared words are on the top of a ski hill?
Yeah, watch out. Oh,
No, follow me, Grandpa.
oh yeah. Uh-huh. I used to have fun with them.
Yeah.
See.
We can still listen.
Oh, close it all down and just try to connect the camera.
Okay, we've got 10 o'clock here. Welcome, everybody. See mostly familiar faces and familiar voices. But in case you're new to the group, hi, my name is Ted Newton. I'm one of the tournament directors here with the Golf Association of Michigan. Thanks very much for taking the time to broaden your new rules knowledge or refresh your already well-established rules knowledge, to have a little discussion along the way, and of course have some fun and have a few laughs, which is I think a big reason why we all like to get together for these and during the season as well. We're going to be discussing rules 10 and 11 today, a very broad couple of rules that deal with the physical act of hitting a golf ball, what you can and cannot do in that process, what you can talk about and who you can talk about things with while playing golf in preparation of hitting a golf shot, the role of a caddy, what they are allowed and not allowed to do. And also then we get into what happens when your golf ball hits certain things, what happens when certain things hit your golf ball while it's in motion, and the processes and procedures you go through doing that. So let's get started. Don't be afraid to put something in the chat if you've got a question or thought. If you have noise in the background, we encourage you to mute as always, but don't be afraid to chime in every so often. So let's get started. But before we get into the rules, just a couple of dates I want to bring to your attention where, granted, we've got a fair amount of time, but we are a little low on signups for referees at the events you see on your screen right now. We've got a busy day on May 23rd with one of the senior mid-am sites, a U.S. Senior Open qualifier at Barton Hills, and the GAM Net Chapman over at Eagle Eye in East Lansing. The Net Chapman right now is a little short, and as many of you know, when you combine a course of the challenge of Eagle Eye and a wide range of skill set that you get at net tournaments, a lot of volunteers will come in handy on that day. So I encourage you to look into that. The senior match play the week after Memorial Day in Muskegon. We need referees both for the stroke play and the match play days. So please look into that. For refereeing those matches, everyone would be taking a cart because the players are riding for that as well. We have a Michigan Amateur qualifier at Kaufman on the 8th. Need some for there. June 29th, that's the first day of match play for at Hawk Hollow for the Michigan AM. We need over 30 volunteers for that. If you haven't signed up for that, you enjoy walking matches or riding a match, we do allow you to ride now if it's physically necessary for you. Encourage you to sign up for that. USAM qualifier at Egypt Valley. That's a big one that we're a little short on right now. The Junior Amateur Championship up at Agaming for the first day of match play. We obviously want to have referees for all those matches. And two-day championships, one at Makatawa on the west side and another one at up in Apple Mountain in the Saginaw area to check out as well. So please, if you're not signed up for those events and you think you might be available, please check them out, and we'd love to have your help there. There's a few where you have too many people. There's too many of you. We don't need this many of you, and especially on the 23rd and 5th where we have a need in another place. I think I saw we've got 14 signed up at Barton Hills when we only need 10 for the U.S. Senior Open qualifier. The Michigan Women's Amateur at Great Oaks. There's for the stroke play days, not the match play days. The match play days, we need more people. But the stroke play days, I think we only need 10, and we've got 15 signed up. So
I can take myself off that if that's wrong
for those days. And the USAM qualifier at Oakland Hills North, I think we've got a surplus of 4 or 5 for that. I know Oakland Hills is a big deal. In addition to the Egypt Valley qualifier that day, we also have a GAM championship qualifier at Forest Lake, just down the road in Bloomfield Hills as well. So if you're looking, if you don't want to travel to the west side, but you know, if we have a few too many Oakwood Hills, I'd encourage you to check out that Forest Lake one as well. And we also had a few recent ads, mostly Michigan Junior AM qualifiers, and mostly in mid-June. See them all listed right there. Please look into that. There's a GAM championship qualifier in late July in Jackson. It was a late ad. And our women's senior championship, Sugar Springs in Gladwin in mid-September. Something to consider as well. So we've been thrilled with the level of sign up right now, but there are still a few places that we need a few more names and bodies for. So please check your schedules, look into that. And if you have any of those, please let us know. Okay, now to the business at hand, the rules for the day. Rule 10 is preparing for and making a stroke, advice and help, and caddies and what their role is. So the purpose of the rule, the purpose statement, Rule 10 covers how to prepare for and make a stroke, including advice and other help the player may get from others, including caddies. The underlying principle is that golf is a game of skill and personal challenge, meaning that there's certain things you can and can't do in making a stroke, and there's certain information you can use and have access to, and certain ones you can't. Rule 10.1 deals with the making of the stroke, the physical act, what you are and are allowed to do and not allowed to do. The purpose of this rule, it has its own purpose rule. Not every subsection of a rule has a purpose statement, but it says Rule 10.1 covers how to make a stroke and several acts that are prohibited in doing so. The stroke is made by fairly striking at a ball with the head of the club. The fundamental challenge is to direct and control the movement of the entire club by freely swinging the club without anchoring it. The two key phrases and words in that statement are striking at a ball with the head of the club. You can only use the head of the club, not the grip, not the shaft, the head of the club. You can do all kinds of things with the head of the club, turn it backwards, turn it upside down. That's all well and good, but you have to use the head of the club. And you have to freely swing the club without anchoring it. That was something that came in the last 5 or 6 years, point of contention in the rules of golf. And it's still a conversation that goes on today in terms of what is allowed and what isn't. And the penalty for breach of this rule is the general penalty. So 2 strokes in stroke play, loss of hole in match play. Okay, fairly striking at the ball. In making a stroke, the player must fairly strike at the ball with the head of the club such that there is only a momentary contact between the club and the ball and must not push, scrape, or scoop the ball. This little graphic image, GIF you're seeing here, this is a gentleman. His name is James Lepp. He's a NCAA Division I champion from the University of Washington. Canadian, and he was dealing with some chipping yips, tough. He got it back. Tight lie. So he's Canadian. He's a former hockey player too. He kind of leaned back on his hockey background and created a chipping method that he dubbed the saucer pass. You know, sure Dan Lajoie has thrown some great saucer passes in his day as well, but this was originally deemed to be legal. The governing body in Canada looked at it when he was playing in competition up there and said, nope, that's fine, that's good. Then he went on the Big Break on Golf Channel. Marv, intimately familiar with that operation. And he got some notoriety for this and was very effective in doing so. I think he finished second in that competition. So it got on the radar of the USGA, the RNA. They sat down and looked at it, and they decided inevitably this did not meet the standard of Rule 10.1a, fairly striking the ball. They considered this a scrape. I would say that the key thing that he's doing that makes it illegal is that he's starting the club on the ground, scraping it along the ground, and then there is one point of contact, but there's really not a backswing, and the club isn't in the air going back. That's where I think they decided it was illegal?
Up to me.
This is a new situation, came in the 2019 rules. There you see a fairly infamous moment in a US Open just down the road at Oakland Hills. TC
it's a double chip. Yeah.
By a big 3-4 strokes.
We were there for that.
And, yep, double hit it. At that point in time, that was, in addition to the original stroke, he incurred a stroke penalty for hitting it an additional time. I think this was on the way to an 8 that erased the sizable lead he had built up and allowed Andy North to sneak in there and eventually win. With the 2019 rules change, the USGA, RNA, the powers that be decided that shot was enough of a penalty in itself. He obviously didn't mean to do that. He obviously didn't gain any advantage from hitting it twice. He didn't do it on purpose. And so as you see, the word accidentally is in there. So it would just be one stroke, no different than if you just flubbed the chip and hit it once. So this is maybe something that maybe went under the radar a bit and the rules changed. I think everybody agree, if you are refereeing out on the course and you see a player double hit it a couple times, a chip shot on accident, it's a good idea to go up to him or her and say, just so you know, that only counts as one. And if they know that already, they'd say, yep, that's no. And if they didn't know that, they were operating under the old rules, you're giving them good news. Oh, that's one less than I thought. So an actual good situation where the rules help the player more than they previously did. And as a referee, you get to be the good guy in telling them that at worst, it's what you thought was happened, or at best, it's one less shot than they thought they might have taken. Okay,
There's an X on it. I don't know what
recent rules issue. It wasn't part of 19, but chat.
No, that's not it.
Oh, looks like. Oh, sorry, I just got someone in the waiting room. Gonna gotta let in. Sorry. I think I've got them all in. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Yep. So just adding a few more people to the group now. Sorry for the quick delay. Okay. Okay. Like I said, another controversial recent point of discussion with the rules of golf is anchoring. The rule, as it's stated, in making a stroke, you must not anchor the club, directly by a grip or a gripping hand against any part of the body, except that the player may hold the club or a gripping hand against a hand or forearm. So what it's referring to there is, and I brought a visual aid today, you cannot anchor it against your body like so. You anchor a hand right up against the body like this and swing it like that. But still legal is the use of the forearm. What time are you? I'm on a call. For arm lock putting like that. That's what they're going to there. Now, indirectly by use of an anchor, by holding the forearm against any part of the body. That was kind of the second grip I showed right there, where forearm up there, and now the club isn't touching my body, but it's in my hand and my hand's against. So that's an anchor point all the same. So, as I said, must not anchor the forearm against the body, but holding a forearm against the body during a stroke is an indirect means of anchoring the club. So for an anchor point to exist, two things must happen. The player must hold the forearm against the body, which is what I just showed you, but the player must grip the club so that the hands are separated and work independently from each other. So as I showed in kind of mimicking a long putter stroke, it involves the hands being separated. But if a player is holding the club in both hands and resting his forearms against his body, that is okay. You see kind of the old style Bobby Jones putting that was in vogue back in the early part of the 20th century, where the stroke was very wristy and handsy, and the forearms were kind of anchored to the hip area, the thigh area. That is still allowed, so long as he's got two hands together on the club and it does not create an anchor point. That is still allowed. Not something you see with the way putting greens and putters have gone. It's much more of a shoulder, big muscle stroke. But if someone were to do that, that would be okay. Another person doing that.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I understand this one, other than potato. I mean, Mr. Potato, I guess. But body part he left at home, I guess. I guess this one is either one. Which one? This one? Okay, that's fine.
Okay, moving on. Now, this is where it gets very much into intent with contact with the clothing. So if a player were to use not anchor it against their body, but be wearing a loose shirt or a jacket and use that to anchor it, that is seen as a breach all the same. The other thing you can't do is use a gripping hand to hold an article of clothing worn on any part of your body, such as holding a sleeve and while making a stroke. So I guess what they're saying is, if you were to take your sleeve like this, hold it against the club like this as a way to kind of stabilize your arm and your shirt sleeve to help you make a stroke, this would be illegal. And, you can see that how I'm holding that, but that you can't do that. You can't hold your sleeve against your shirt to help you, I guess, stabilize your arm or your stroke. That's seen as somewhat similar to anchoring. Okay, but if this happens accidentally, there's no intent to anchor, it's okay. And this is where it gets a little, there are rumblings on tour of players that just seem to accidentally brush the top of their long putter against their shirt pretty much every stroke, and to the point where it can't be a coincidence. But as long as it's in their mind accidental, it's still allowed. So not just with putting, this can happen if you've got a situation where a ball is well above a player's feet, it's out of a bunker and their stance has to be in the bunker. So you have to choke up significantly on a club to make a stroke. And if in that movement, the grip gets caught in the sleeve or around the torso area of a shirt or jacket, that's not a penalty. It has to be an actual intent to create an anchor point with the stroke. Okay, now we kind of get into how the stance, what is allowed in terms of the stance. The player must not make a stroke from a stance with a foot deliberately placed on each side of, or with either foot deliberately touching the line of play or an extension of that line behind the ball. For this rule, the line of play does not include a reasonable distance on either side. So you see here, Sam Steen, the old style croquet, side saddle, split grip putting that he used way back when he was going through some putting challenges of his own. And eventually the powers that be decided that this wasn't a stroke, that it's, where he's standing, how he's making the stroke. It also looks like he's anchored his arm against his body, but that's another issue altogether. This wasn't it. So they outlawed this. So he's kind of moved to the side when he did it too. Bryson tried that recently. There's issues with that. But generally speaking, not something we see often with us. This stance is illegal, and other strokes similar to it with the foot on the line or very close to the line is very much is illegal. Now, one thing the USGA and the RNA have improved with this rule is, again, much like they did with anchoring and stuff, clubs getting caught in clothing, is they look very hard at intent. Obviously, Sam Snead wants to putt like this. He's trying like this. This is his stance. This is his technique. This is his. But players would sometimes do this where they're not trying to gain an advantage in how they're stroking it. They're just trying to tap in a putt. They don't want to go through the issue of marking a 6-inch putt. So they kind of spread their legs and they put a foot on their line just so they don't step on the line of one of their playing partners. And when this would happen back, way back when, before this updated, a guy would do that. Whoever the tournament, the USGA, they'd get flooded with, "Hey, I saw him. He stood on the line of play." And then the USGA would, have to go to the videotape, and they'd try and, Zapruder film together where the player's line of play was and if his foot was over a 6-inch putt. So they eventually came up with this exception that there is no penalty if the stance is taken accidentally or to avoid another player's line of play, making it about, good intent or no malice or no trying to gain an advantage, just trying to have good etiquette, basically. So that is one of the improvements that has been made to the rules of golf over the years. Okay, playing a moving ball. Here's Phil running to Caddy, one can presume. The player must not make a stroke at a moving ball. A ball in play is moving when it does not rest on a spot. If a ball has come to rest as wobbling, sometimes referred to as oscillating, but stays on or returns to its original spot, it is treated as being at rest and it is not a moving ball. So here, obviously, Phil has hit a moving ball. There was a lot of issues beyond that, but in its most simple form, playing a moving ball is a no-no. But there are exceptions when there is no penalty. Exception 1 is when a ball begins to move only after the player begins a backswing for making a stroke. And this is covered in Rule 9, which Craig would have covered last week. Whoops. And then you have a ball falling off a tee, playing from a teeing ground, and the ball falls off in the midst of a string, in the midst of your backswing, and you keep swinging through and hit the ball. There is no penalty. And if a ball is moving in temporary water or water in a penalty area, you are allowed to make a stroke at that moving ball without penalty, or you may take relief and may lift a moving ball without penalty. And but there is, in either case, a player must not unreasonably delay play to allow wind or water to move the ball to a better space. You can't, rivers flowing in the direction of the hole, player can't just wait for the river to take the ball all the way downstream in hopes that it'll come up on shore or get to a place right by the green where he or she can actually hit it out of the penalty area. You cannot unreasonably delay play in that process. Okay, moving on to 10.2, advice and other help. There's our boy James and our other boy Dan winning the US Amateur. Purpose of the rule, a fundamental challenge for the player is deciding the strategy and the tactics for his or her play. So there are limits to the advice and other help the player may get during a round. Penalty for breach of this rule is the general penalty. 2 strokes, loss of hole in match play. 2 strokes in stroke play. Okay. Okay. During a round, a player must not give advice to anyone in the competition who's playing on the course, ask for advice other than the player's caddy, or touch another player's equipment to learn information that would be advice if given by or asked of the other player, such as touching the other player's clubs or bag to see what club's being used. You can't rifle around, move a towel in a player's bag to see what club they hit. That is considered the same as asking what club they hit. But this does not apply before a round or while play is stopped under Rule 5.7a or between rounds in a competition. So if we have a weather delay, everybody comes in, play is suspended, then they can talk about what clubs they hit on each hole, how they felt the wind was going, how putts broke, anything like that. That is all in play while play is suspended, as well as before or after a round. Okay, so this is a rule, and when we talk about advice, what is not advice, there's some very clear things that are advice and aren't advice, but there's also a gray area, and we'll kind of talk about the gray areas. Things that, you know, would be considered advice. As a player talk about how he hit a shot in response to a question. Oh, I took a little off a 7-iron with that one. Giving swing advice. You're taking the club too far inside. You're coming over the top. Your grip's too strong. Things like that. Those are clearly advice. That, talk about, hey, that putt's really quick. It's really fast. Not just it's as opposed to that putt is downhill. It's talk about really how quick it is. Or giving advice on course strategies, such as, don't hit driver there, lay back with an iron. That's the smart play. Those are all clearly advice. Things that aren't advice, just basic publicly available knowledge about the course. Yeah, there's water on the left up there. If you're a player who's familiar with the course is playing with a player who's not familiar with the course, he can point out this is where a penalty area is, this is where out of bounds is, this is where a bunker is, things like that. Talking about where the hole location is, you can say it's on top of a shelf on the back right portion of the green. That's all publicly available information that they have access to. If one of them has a distance measuring device and the other players in the group don't, he is allowed to give them yardages that he shoots with that device. If they all walk up to a par 3 and one guy goes to the middle of the tee box where the tee markers are, lasers it and says, hey, 162, that's not seen as advice. That is considered available knowledge and not something you get a penalty over. Kind of going along with publicly available knowledge and things to deal with rules, it's okay for a player to say, after a shot, yeah, there is OB over there, you should hit a provisional. Letting the person know if they might not know, for the sake of pace of play and rules, that, hey, that's what's going on over there. This is the course situation, so this is what you might want to do. That would not fall under advice. Now, these are pretty clear-cut either way examples. Some people out there, I'll throw it out to you guys, and you can unmute for the moment if you want. What are some things, some ideas of things that you consider in a gray area that are worthy of discussion? Throw it out to anybody what you think are things that could be construed as advice or could be, you could also declare not to be advice.
I mean, one we get, Ted, on the tee often, especially in qualifiers, is you'll hear them say, have you played the course? No, I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Well, I can help you.
Mm-hmm. So there's ways they can help and they can't. There are certain, I think there are certain, phrases that can be, that are just, simple encouragement that could be construed as advice,
Hey, Teddy.
3 straight birdies, his playing partner it's just trying to be a nice person, say, hey, good job, keep doing what you're doing. That's probably not advice, but, at the same time, there's a story about Hunter Mahan. He had a very involved father growing up, and at a college tournament, Hunter was struggling a little bit and his dad was following him. After a shot, he just kind of said, Hunter, you just got to loosen up. And a rules official, I believe it was actually the executive director of the AJGA, right there when it happened, and he said, Vice, that's a 2-stroke penalty. You can't do that. Fortunately, I think when that word got to his college coach actually thanked Stephen for doing that because he wanted his dad to shut up. But those are kind of the things that you have to be mindful of. And I think, Craig, Lee, Marv, other experienced people can chime in, especially when you're dealing with parents and junior tournaments. It's a good idea if you see someone that you haven't witnessed them giving advice, but they are very conversational with the players, to kind of take them aside and say, hey, we haven't seen anything yet, but to avoid the perception of anything that might not be above board, or we could have to penalize, your child, probably best to stay away and if not talk, keep conversation very, very simple and plainly not advice.
Hey, Ted, I've had that happen a lot, and it's usually being the parents. And I would just say, look, I know you talk to your child and you may have been discussing lunch, but it could be conceived as advice. So stay away from the kid. And most parents have done that once you tell them to stay away.
It's something, especially with kids, especially in very competitive environments, it's good to be proactive on. So you don't have a situation of he said, she said, his story against your story, and put the kid in an awkward position when really probably all the kid wants to do is just go call shots.
I've had, I'll give you just a couple of situations. One is that the last comment you made about, gee, I think that ball's out of bounds, you better hit a provisional. I kind of think that's a gray area. I've never called a penalty on anyone, but I've told players that they need to be careful. Just to me, that's giving advice. I think it's okay to say, gee, it looks to me like that ball's out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you take the next step, again, I've never called a penalty on somebody, but I've gotten a lot of pushback from players too. They say, oh, that's not advice.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I think that's a gray area. But at any rate, if it's not, then I'll adjust my thinking. The other one,
I think it is good to let them know that is a gray area, and if, of course, we talk. Well, this rule doesn't deal a lot with intent. That is, I think that if you witness that and you can ask the intent, or you can deduce something about the intent, that might inform your how you'd approach that situation.
Yeah, well, again, I wasn't trying to, I said basically, be careful on what you say.
Yeah, exactly, which I think is the best course of action, for sure.
And most of the time the guys look at me and say, oh, okay, yes, I understand. But a couple of times I've had guys say, what the hell are you talking about? The other one that happened to me this past fall was in a high school tournament where a player had hit a ball off the fairway and was over in some trees basically, and I happened to come up there to help her make sure she wasn't on an obstruction, and then I saw an adult talking to her who I assumed was her coach, but when I looked more carefully, the player had one logo on her bag and the person talking to her had another logo on her bag. It turned out it was another coach from another team. And when I stopped him from, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm just helping her out here." I said, "Well, you can't do that." And he said, "Well, no, we do that all the time in our league tournaments." And I said, "Well, this is a qualifier for the state championship. That's not part of the deal here." So I guess I'm just mentioning it, that you need to kind of be careful and look carefully at who's doing what when those situations arrive.
Yeah, that. So I think it's that's a situation, and it probably happens quite a bit in high school team competitions, where a person such as a coach, and especially when a situation involves the rules, if a coach in that situation was providing the player from the other team their options, that's very much okay. But once you get into, yeah, you should, it becomes a matter of can and should. You said, well, you can drop here, or you can go back here, or you can do this, as opposed to you should do this, or you should hit your next shot from here. That's where.
Yeah, this wasn't a rule situation. He was telling her, well, you can either chip it out to the fairway or you can take it through these trees here. I said, well, hey, time out a minute. Now we're well beyond what the options are, you know. So.
Yeah, that's, and I'm sure he was well intended. He was just probably trying to help the young lady get through and get it done and over with. But, you know.
Yeah, that was his argument. Oh, we do this all the time, and I'm just helping her out. And she's, you know, I know her coach. He does it for my team. I said, well, you know, that doesn't work.
Well, you guys do great work with high school stuff, but like imagine, you know, high school basketball. If for the entire regular season they called their own fouls like a pickup game. And then you got to the state tournament and all of a sudden you had refs out there. Imagine how that would go.
Hey, Teddy.
And we'll get into
other
forms of play. This is something that's very relevant when you get into team competitions, where it be scrambles, best balls, alternate shots, stuff like that, high school, college, whatnot. So we'll cover that when we get into other forms of play now. But this is definitely a rule that definitely comes up when we get into other forms of play.
Hey, Teddy.
Yep.
This is Dan. If I'm playing in an event and someone does hit it out of bounds and they just say, hey, I'm going to reload, as a player, I would mention to them, are you going to play a provisional ball? And then let them go ahead and then say, yes, this is a provisional ball. Instead of letting them just get a penalty for not saying it. I don't think that's advice, because it's part of the rules, and advising them on the rule itself. If they're going to play that, then they need to say, I'm playing under 18-3 or I'm playing a provisional ball.
Yep. That's a situation where it's very good for players to lead their fellow competitors into proper, into the correct rules procedure.
Hey, Teddy.
I'll put in the group chat here, and just, we talk about distance and laser. What do you think about a player, if a player asks another player, hey, how far did you hit that shot? Where do you think that falls under our advice, not advice, kind of in our table here?
All right, I'm Gary. I'm the new guy. I'll go ahead and trash myself on this one.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
It's good to be here.
First time, long time.
Oh, love you long time. I think, at least in my opinion on that one, that's giving advice, because you're basically trying to find out exactly how far they hit it, in my mind, whether they hit it well. Exactly how far they hit that club, and to me that's a little bit too far. That to me sounds like advice, asking for advice.
Yeah, they may also be trying to judge the effect of the wind on the ball.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is definitely a gray area on that one.
Yeah, I put it in the gray area category. They said, how far is it to that? You hit it right to that tree. How far is that tree? That's a different story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it might deal with intent. Like Craig said, they could be trying to judge the wind or something like that. Or it's just trying to figure out where a player's ball is, maybe if it's a blind shot or something. It's very, very tough, very, very gray on that one. So I think that's more a question of, you might want to ask, if you stumble upon a situation like that, ask the player, what exactly were you trying to ascertain from that question? Yeah.
Hey, Teddy.
Yep.
Another thing that comes up as a referee, and I find myself slowing down a little bit, is when you're given a player options and you give them, 1 or 2, 3 options they have, you got to be careful that you're not really giving them advice either, especially the juniors. Your option is this, or I don't know how to explain it, but you want them to take the one option, but you really can't tell them that. So
yeah,
it's kind of a gray area for us too, but you want to help the players as much as you can.
Yeah, it is, kind of like, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's a situation where there's a lot on you guys to read the room, read the situation. If it's a high school regional where a young player and their team are clearly not advancing and you're just looking to get out of there, maybe you inflect a little on certain options a little stronger than others to keep the train moving and get everything in.
Depends on how long the player's been crying before you get
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Doug didn't say, when did we insert the use of distance measuring devices? I don't know, Doug, if you're asking when those became legal, they've been illegal as long as I've been with the GAM. The only time where they're not allowed is when we do a US Open or a US Senior Open qualifier. And I don't know, that might have changed, to be honest. I'm not too fresh on that. I may have to look on that again if that's changed, but
yeah, that has changed. They are allowed now.
They are allowed in local qualifying. Yep. Yeah. So
correct,
that's not something we need to worry about in any way, shape, or form. Thank you, Alex.
Just the question I have is that where in the rule, or is it in Rule 10 where if I ask, I don't have a measuring device, but you do, and I'd like to ask you for a distance from.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, somebody giving you because a distance is public knowledge. Yeah. And if you don't have a way of measuring it, somebody else can measure it for you.
Yeah, it's all the same as if he said, if one player has a yardage book and another does, oh yeah, it's 160 yards from the back of this bunker, or that's all, common knowledge that it's the same for everybody, I think, is a big part of that. The distance from that point to that point is always going to be X amount of yards. Yeah. Key point though, but key point, no, with distance measuring devices, we do always have to remember to make sure to tell players to turn the slope, elevation, all those extra features off for competition, whether it's us or USGA, it doesn't matter. So yeah, thanks to Bill for putting that in the chat. Thank you, Bill. Okay, so good discussion on that point. I think that's a very good thing to.
Hey, Ted.
Yep, go ahead.
I want to talk a minute about this issue of parents giving advice. You know, because you can't penalize a parent, you're going to have to penalize the player. So I think you need to involve the player when that's the situation. There's an interpretation 10.2a/2. Basically, it says player must try to stop ongoing advice that is given voluntarily, right? So you need to explain to the player it's also their responsibility to tell their parent to stop giving them advice, or they're going to get a penalty, right? Because you know, you can't tell a kid you're getting 2 shots because your dad won't shut up, right? So I think it's important to approach the player in those situations and say, you know, you have a responsibility here to stop that from happening, and we're going to help you with that by explaining to this person that it's causing a problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point, John. You know,
Ted, I'm sorry. To John's point then, so it is okay for us to go to the player and say, hey, listen, you need to make sure that your dad, your coach, whoever is doing that, because this is what potentially could happen, instead of just jumping right in.
It goes along with the earlier example where we talk about where we witness conversation, but we can't say for certain that it's advice.
Okay.
To be proactive and include the player in that, because, you know, just so everybody's on the same page in terms of this is what we're seeing. We can't penalize you, and we won't penalize you at this time, but just to make sure we don't have any issues going forward.
Got it.
Player, referee, this is our understanding. Let's move forward as such.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.
I'd take a little more aggressive approach. I think, you know, if it happens one time, that's one thing. But if it's every hole, I'd be going up to the parent and say, you know, number one, that's not part of the rules. That's against the rules. And I also would include the player at some point saying, by the way, I've warned your father, your mother, whoever it is, your brother, your cousin, your uncle, whatever, that you're in jeopardy of getting a penalty unless you help stop this. I think you have to be proactive in those kinds of situations. And of course, if it's a team thing with the coach, then you better get the coach involved too.
Yeah.
So in my experience, I mean, the player's parents is trying to make sure that their child gets a good score. So when I talk to the parent, I say, look, if you are giving advice, your child is going to suffer a penalty. And in all the times I've done that, the parents have never gone close to the child again because they don't want their child to get a penalty. So unless it happens more than once, I don't bother the child. You know, they need to be concentrating on what they are doing. But that parent usually is now 40, 50 years away and not close to the child because they don't want them to get a penalty.
I think it's good to include the player in it, but also read the room in terms of sometimes it's pretty obvious that the kid just wishes their mom and dad would get away from them and not talk to them, whether it's advice or not. And so the kid is a willing partaker in, you know, the exchanging of information and ideas and conversation. So how you approach the player, how you approach the parent, it's important to, you know, read the situation. If they're doing this out of ignorance, if they're doing this out of malintent, if they're doing this out of insanity, and proceed accordingly.
Well, you have a 30-foot rule or a 30-yard rule or something where people can't come within certain distance of players?
Not officially, but I think I think that's kind of, if you want to give them something kind of concrete to operate off of going forward, I think that's a good starting point.
So you can make stuff up.
Not close together, it's impossible for them to have conversation without everybody around them knowing it too.
Lee, isn't that mixed rule?
Yeah, I suspect it's true in the high school events or maybe the AJGA stuff. There's some sort of distance, right? At least I thought there was. If there wasn't, as I said, I think we've applied it as if it is a rule. So
that's Mick's rule and we'll do it. Thank you.
Mick invented social distancing.
The issue that I have is really not during our GAM tournaments, because you know who should be involved and who should not. It's the high schools, you know, those high school matches, they have so many people running around. You don't know who is a coach and who is just interfering. And that's what I've had a lot of trouble with, not knowing whom I'm dealing with.
Okay, yeah, so junior term, that's where this really comes into play.
For anybody that's
proactive
new,
on it.
Anybody that's new that has not done high school should understand, though, that the High School Athletic Association allows the coach to provide advice everywhere on the course except the putting green. So it's kind of an upside down look at this rule for their events.
But they supply the coaches with a badge, so you can identify who's allowed to give advice.
And HHGA recommends 20 yards, no parents to be near the players and no conversation.
Yeah. Okay, well, yep, like I said, good discussion on this one. It's an important one to discuss because there's a lot of gray area, and it's something that has the potential to come up quite often. Here's things that are allowed by a caddy. So pointing out line of play for ball anywhere except on the putting green. A player may have his or her caddy line of play pointed out by having his or her caddy or any other person stand on or close to the player's line of play to show where it is, but that person must move away before the stroke is made. So it doesn't even have to be a caddy. It could be a spectator. A person can ask a person to say a shot has to go over a hill. Hey, can you just stand right here till I go down to my ball so I'm able to stand behind it and look at, this is what I want my line to play. Now they must have that person move away before the stroke is made. Or they can just have it set a towel, an umbrella, an object down at that point to show the line of play. But again, it has to be removed before the stroke is made. Something that would likely happen with a blind shot in some way, shape, or form. Okay. Okay, other help, this is more on the putting green. So before a stroke is made, only the player and his or her caddy, so now the other people are gone, only a player or a caddy may point out the player's line of play, but with these limitations. They actually may touch the putting green with a hand or foot or anything he or she is holding. So it could be a putter, the flag stick, but they cannot improve the conditions affecting the stroke in breach, and that would be in breach of Rule 8.1. So they can just tap the flag, yeah, it's this far outside, yeah, it's that, but they can't put a dent in the green to show where the starting line is. You can just tap it, move it, that's fine, but you can't dent it with your putter, you can't put a little mark there, put a little indentation down with your finger. You must use, it just has to be a quick tap to show. And you cannot set an object down anywhere on or off the putting green to show line of play. You can't position a bag or a towel off to the side, just strategically positioned how much the putt will break. It might happen by accident, but you definitely can't direct, a player cannot direct a caddy to get, yeah, put the bag right there because I want that to be my start line for this putt. And while the stroke is being made, the caddy must not deliberately stand on or in a location close to the player's line of play unless they're attending the flag stick. They just can't stand. They can't stand behind them on the line of play. Hey, I'm just going to stand where your starting line should be. No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, they can't position the people or objects for their intentionally for their benefits. You can't be proactive on something like that. Okay, no setting down an object to help in taking your stance. With the picture here, I'm showing some alignment sticks, some yard poles that you see out a lot these days, but they use them mostly for alignment. That people use on the range. Obviously, you can do that on the range. You can do whatever you want. But if this, or even using a club, if they ever start putting that down to set up their feet or their body prior to taking a stroke, they're in breach of this rule, even if they back away, even if they then pick up the club. Now, something I will help is they can't, if they were to use to say, try and align their shoulders, they can do that. But once the club or that object, or once the club is on the ground, there's no going back. If they're using that club to help them and line their feet up, they're going to get the penalty. They're going to get the general penalty for doing so.
Hey, Ted, I have a question.
Yep.
In some cases, I've seen people put their ball down on the tee, similar to the way you do it on the putting green. Mm-hmm. Is that a violation? Because technically, they are trying to figure out how to orient themselves to the line of play.
No, that if they're lining up the logo or a line on the tee to help them with their start line, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Okay. This is the other thing. Talking about restrictions on caddy standing behind player. Comes up quite a bit, was a big part of the recent rules overhaul. Quite simply, when a player begins taking a stance for the stroke until the stroke's made, the player's caddy must not deliberately stand in a location on or close to an extension of the line play behind the ball for any reason. If the player takes a stance in breach of this rule, he or she cannot avoid penalty by backing away. So you see this situation right here in the USGA graphic. Even this taking of a stance to line them up, deliberately doing so, this is a violation of 10.2. Even if they back away, even if they don't hit the shot, they cannot avoid if they are partaking in this deliberate act to stand behind them to line them up. However, this is where it gets dicey, and anybody who watched the Honda last weekend saw this with Daniel Berger, and the exception to this, and one of those things you kind of wonder how long this is going to last. So the exception is the ball on the putting green. When the player's ball is on the putting green, there is no penalty under this rule if the player backs away from the stance and does not begin to take the stance again until after the caddy has moved out of that location. I tried to find video of this so you can see it in action, but just have to do with that picture. How Berger does it is he has his mark down, he lines up the line or the logo on the ball. He takes a stance with his caddy behind him. And the caddy goes, yep, that's good. The line is good. Your stance is good. He backs away. Berger backs out. Then he backs back in and strokes the putt. So for now, it's legal. I have no intel to suggest it's on the chopping block or up for change. But it's definitely something that catches people's attention when they watch a tournament on how is that legal when the other things we just discussed are illegal to do. So it'll be interesting to see. But it's good to know that that is still okay on a putting green to a certain extent.
Hey, Ted, and I apologize to everybody. I'm going to ask a bunch of questions just because I'm trying to get my feet wet, but
Yep.
I'm assuming that our goal is to not, I don't want to know if I want to use the word warn, but just kind of talk to somebody first and just say, hey, you know, this is what I saw. You're really not allowed to do that. I'm just letting you know for now. Let's try not to do that again. I assume that's kind of our goal.
It depends on the situation. Our big thing is to prevent penalties when we can. And the big thing is to be proactive in doing them. But a brazen violation of the rules can't go unchecked. That's first. You know, a situation like this where if you just come upon it and you can't say for certain what's going on or why they do this, that's when you ask questions.
Okay.
And, you know, hey, are you standing there? Oh, and if they say, oh, well, I was lining them up and watching the line of the putt, and they say, well, you can't do that. That's penalty. He said, oh, but if they go, oh, well, was I standing behind him? He goes, yeah, I think you were. Just be careful of that going forward.
Okay.
So it's,
yep.
Again, it's a lot of reading the situation. As black and white as we like the rules to be, we do have to do a lot of reading of the situation. I don't know. Lee, if you want to chime in on that or anybody else.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ted. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
No, I just was saying thank you.
Yeah, I find that happening more than I would expect with caddies, tournaments that we have, or qualifiers that we have caddies. Oftentimes the player will get, you know, a buddy who doesn't play golf and he doesn't know or she doesn't know, and they're standing there. They may or may not even be giving them the alignment, but they're standing directly behind the player. Or sometimes if I'm coming from a distance and I see and I can't tell the perspective of it, I'll go up and say to them, gee, it looks like you were standing right behind in direct line. You can't do that. Are you aware of that? Or asking them, you know, to make sure that they understand that there are some restrictions on where they can be. And again, you get some people that say, oh, this is my first time caddying. I'm just out here for my girlfriend or my boyfriend or whatever it is. But then you get a few that are more seasoned and say, oh no, I wasn't anywhere near the line. You got to expect to do that. But I think being proactive and aggressive is the right approach.
Okay.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks.
Yep.
Ted, wasn't there a clarification published?
Yep, that there actually is. Kyle just came in with this. The picture, and yep, here it is. I'll actually put it on the screen. 1 second. Okay, so Interp explains that the primary purpose of Rule 10.2b4 is to ensure that aiming at the intended target is a challenge that the player must overcome alone. In a situation where a player has not yet begun to take his or her stance for the stroke, but the player's feet or body are close to a position where useful guidance on aiming could be given, and the caddy is deliberately standing on or close to an extension of the line of play behind the ball. The player is treated as having begun to take a stance for the stroke, even though his or her feet are not in that position, only if the caddy gives the player help with alignment. So we're getting into intent, purpose. It goes beyond just the physical presence of the caddy behind the player. If alignment help is given, but the player backs away before making the stroke and the caddy moves out from behind the line of play, there is no breach of the rule. This applies anywhere on the course. So that's the key part of the clarification. If alignment help is given, but the player backs away before making the stroke and the caddy moves out from behind the line of play, there is no breach of the rule. So the player would have to back away. So that is a clarification on that. Okay, thank you, Kyle. Let's see. Okay. Okay, physical help and protection from elements. A player must not make a stroke while getting physical help from his or her caddy or any other person, or with his or her caddy or any other person or object deliberately positioned to give protection from sunlight, rain, wind, or other elements. Before the stroke is made, such help or protection is allowed except as prohibited in rules 10.2b and 10.2. Yeah. Oops. Okay. This rule does not prohibit the player from taking his or her own actions to protect against the elements while making a stroke, such as by wearing protective clothing or holding an umbrella over his or her own head. So this picture I just found, I think it was an ad for umbrellas. This is a violation of the rule where a caddy is holding an umbrella over this player's head while they are making the stroke. If the caddy pulled away right before the stroke was made, they'd be okay. Other things, like they say, it could involve positioning themselves, the bag, an umbrella to just block glare from the sun. You can't do that while the stroke is being made. Now, the player, if it's raining, he's got a little tap in. If he just wants to walk over, umbrella in one hand, putter in the other, walk over and one-handed in with the umbrella above his head, that is okay. That is allowed under 10.2b. Okay, getting into caddies now and everything that pertains to them. The player may have a caddy to carry the player's club and give advice and other help during the round, but there are limits to what the caddy is allowed to do. The player is responsible for the caddy's actions during the round and will get a penalty if the caddy breaches the rules. Yeah. Okay, so a caddy may help a player during the round, but they are only allowed one caddy at a time. A player may have a caddy to carry, transport, and handle his or her clubs, give advice, and help him or her in other ways allowed during a round, but with these limitations. The player must not have more than one caddy at any one time. The player may change caddies during a round, but must not do so temporarily for the sole purpose of getting advice from the new caddy. So situation you see in this graphic here, this happened in Mexico a few years ago when Bones was caddying for Phil. Bones had some bad Mexican food the night before, wasn't gonna make it, so he tapped out, he left. And Phil's brother, who was on site, he stepped in and became the caddy for the day. This is just an example of how there has to be a switch of caddies. There can't be more than one caddy at one time. Now, as the second bullet states, can't have a situation where one caddy taps out, another caddy taps in, just because the caddy that's tapping in just happens to be a swing coach and he has instructions that he could give the player that the caddy might give, nor could that coach relay information to caddy to give to the player. Just like the player can't get advice, the caddy can't get advice to help his or her player. So moving on kind of with this though. Whether or not the player has a caddy or any other person who walks or rides along with a player or who carries other things for the player, such as a rain suit, umbrella, or food and drink, is not the player's caddy unless he or she is named as such by the player or also carries, transports, and or handles the player's clubs. So here are a few things. Again, a lot of these apply to junior tournaments, parents. Some are brazen in what they do with players. Others are scared of their own shadows. And they'll ask you anything and everything about what they're allowed to do. So they'll ask you, hey, can I give him this granola bar? Hey, can I give this bottle? Yes, that's allowed. They are allowed to help search for balls. If it's 50 degrees at 8 a.m. and it's 80 degrees by 11 p.m. and the kid showed up wearing, a sweatshirt or that, and he doesn't have any more room in his bag, yes, the parent can carry the sweater and the player can get it back if already get clothes again. If a player is running out of balls or tees or a towel or needs a new glove, can the parent or other spectator give them a glove or those things? Yes, they can. There was a situation on the PGA Tour last year. I think it was the Byron Nelson tournament. The final round was played in a rain, not a storm, but heavy rain. So obviously towels, gloves, all that, very important. The player that ended up winning the tournament, KH, he had a member of his team, I don't know, it was a swing coach, physical therapist, agent, whoever, that was walking around following his group, keeping dry towels. And he was switching the towels in and out with the player and the caddy. That is allowed to something like a towel or an article of clothing. You can replenish that with someone other than a caddy. It doesn't have to be in the bag the whole time. That was kind of using the rules as they're written out to their benefit. Is that something that maybe at some point could get changed? It's possible. But that is an example of what is allowed, especially when you get into adverse playing conditions and what a spectator is allowed to do. Okay. Something you see a lot at the club, 2 or more players may share a caddy. When there is a rules issue involving a specific action of a shared caddy, and it needs to be decided which player the action was taken for. If the player's caddy action was taken at the specific direction of one of the players sharing the caddy, it was taken by that player. So if you go out if you're sharing a caddy with your partner or opponent, and one person tells the player to pick a ball up, and he picks a ball up, the player, when he shouldn't have, he's acting at the direction of that caddy, and that player would get the penalty. But if there's no specific direction, if none of those players specifically direct the action is treated as taken for the player sharing the caddy whose ball was involved. So if there was no specific action, no direction to pick up a ball, and a caddy picked up a ball when he should have, it would just deal with the player whose ball they were picking up. Okay, penalty for breach of Rule 10.3a, oops. Player gets the general penalty for each hole during which he or she is helped by more than one caddy at one time, 2 strokes or loss of hole. If it happens or continues between 2 holes, the player gets the general penalty for the next hole. So if it's in a match and it happens between hole 5 and 6, 6 is won by the non-offending player. You move on to 7. Yeah. Okay. Here are things that caddies are always allowed to do. Caddy may always take these actions when allowed under the rules. They can carry, transport, and handle the player's clubs and other equipment, including driving a cart or pulling a trolley. They can help search for a player's ball. They are considered, when in terms of timing the ball search, it does start when the caddy arrives. They are considered one of the players. So if a player is back and the caddy arrives in the area where a ball is thought to be, when the clock starts. That is not the case with spectators when they start looking, though. When the caddy's there, that is when the stopwatch starts. Give information, advice, and other help before the stroke is made. Anything is fair game for a caddy to give on swing advice, direction on a stroke, course information. They can do all of that when advising their player. Smooth bunkers, remove sand, and repair damage on the putting green. They are allowed to do that. Remove or attend the flag stick, allowed to do that. They may mark the spot of the player's ball and lift and replace the ball on the putting green. They are allowed to do that. It's always safe, though, to just say, hey, if you're the one that picks it up, you should be the one to put it back down. If you've got a player dealing with back issues that they don't like, or knee issues, and they don't like bending down to pick up their ball, replace it, they are allowed to have a caddy do that for them. Obviously, clean the player's ball when it is marked and lifted, and they can remove loose impediments and movable obstructions as would a player. Okay. These are the actions only allowed with the player's authorization. The caddy may take these actions when the rules allow the player to take them, and only with the player's authorization. which must be given specifically each time. They cannot give a blanket authorization for the round. So they cannot restore conditions that were worsened after the player's ball came to rest. They cannot just say, oh yeah, something that, say you have a situation where you're recreating a line in a bunker for two balls that came together. The player must direct his caddy to restore those conditions in that situation. When the player's ball is anywhere except on the putting green, they cannot lift the ball, requiring it to be replaced after the player has decided to take the relief. Now, here's where it gets a little gray. So long as it is reasonable to conclude that the player is taking relief under a rule, his or her caddy is treated as being given authorization to lift the ball and may do so without penalty. So if a ball is clearly in a penalty area, it is not going to be played. This was added in 2018, as you can see that. There is no additional penalty for them picking it up at that time. Now, what is reasonable and what is unreasonable in terms of if a ball player is going to be definitely taking relief or not taking a relief, that's where it gets a little gray. So it's not a situation you see a ton. It's usually pretty cut and dry. And if it's not cut and dry, usually the person does tell the caddy to pick it up. But I don't know if anybody's ever dealt with a situation like this. I remember there being one situation, I think it was on Corn Ferry, something a few years ago. Yeah, if anybody's had a situation similar to that come up, let me know. Speak up now. No worries. Okay, these are things that a caddy is not allowed to do. Especially obviously in match play, definitely when you're talking about you have parents and young kids, when the mom or dad kind of starts driving the bus and doing things, they cannot concede a putt, concede the next stroke. They have to, the players that are in the match must be the one to concede the putt, concede the hole, concede the match. That must be done by the player. So if you have a situation where you're refereeing a match and there definitely seems to be a caddy, a parent that is kind of making the decision on those sort of things in terms of conceding putts, what's good, what's not, make sure you're very clear that it's the player that is the one that must be giving the approval of concession of any given stroke. They cannot deliberately stand on or close to an extension of the line of play behind the player's ball when the player begins to take a stance for the stroke and until the stroke is made, or take other actions we over in 10.2b. So we kind of overdid that. They cannot replace the ball unless they are the ones that have lifted and moved the ball. They cannot be the ones that drop in a relief area, whether it's penalty area, unplayable lie, obstruction, any of that. It has to be the player that does the dropping or the placing, depending on the situation. The caddy is not the one that can declare a situation unplayable, or they cannot get up to the ball, see that it's in temporary water and say, oh, okay, we're going to take relief and pick up the ball and start that process. No, the caddy can obviously advise the player on that, but the player must decide and declare when they are doing so. Okay, player responsible for caddy's action and breach of the rules. Player is responsible for his or her caddy's actions both during a round and while play is stopped under Rule 5.7a, but not before or after a round. If the caddy's action breaches a rule or would breach a rule if the action was taken by the player, the player gets the penalty under that rule. When application of rule depends on whether the player is aware of certain facts, the player's knowledge is treated as including whatever is known by his or her caddy. Here we see 2020 US Amateur at Bandon. Caddy, a local caddy for a player on the 18th hole, for some reason, just had the brain fart of all brain farts, had thought it was okay for him to stick his hand in the sand to test the surface. Obviously not allowed. That was the general penalty. Lost the hole, cost the player the match. Not good. Don't want to see that ever happen to anyone ever. And just, yeah, it was a tough scene all the way around. But it was very unfortunate, but rules are the rules, and it probably wasn't going to help the player with that shot either way. But what the guy was thinking, I have no idea. Okay, now we get into Rule 11, where we talk about balls in motion getting deflected by animal, object, or person, and deliberate actions to affect the ball in motion. So accidents and things done deliberately. Rule 11 covers what to do if the player's ball in motion hits a person, animal, equipment, or anything else on the course. When this happens accidentally, there is no penalty, and the player normally must accept the result, whether favorable or not, and play the ball from where it comes to rest. Rule 11 also restricts a player from deliberately taking actions to affect where any ball in motion might come to rest. This rule applies anytime a ball is in motion, whether after a stroke or otherwise, except when a ball has been dropped in relief area. So that when a ball is dropped and moving in a relief, when a ball is dropped in a relief area before it has yet come to rest, that is not considered a ball in motion for the purposes of this rule. Yep. Okay, ball in motion accidentally hits a person or outside influence. No penalty to any player. If a player's ball in motion accidentally hits any person or outside influence, including the player himself, there is no penalty to any player. This is true even if the ball hits the player, the opponent, or any other player, any of their caddies or equipment. Top example, you see Phil hitting a drive that hits a marshal, bounces all the way across the fairway, and he just played it as his lies. I'm sure the marshal got a glove with a couple hundies stuff in it as well. At the bottom, you see a situation from the Sunshine Tour in South Africa. Player hitting a shot next to the root of a tree. It ricocheted and caught him in the midsection. There was a time when he would have gotten an additional penalty, quite literally adding insult to injury. But in the 2019 rules overhaul, they decided that this situation where a player hits himself with his own golf ball is not an additional penalty. So,
he doesn't call that the Sunshine Tour anymore.
No, no. Except the exception is on the putting green. If the player's ball in motion hits another ball at rest on the putting green, and both balls were on the putting green before the stroke, the player, the one who hit the stroke, gets the general penalty, 2 penalty strokes. Now, if we get into a refusal to mark that ball, that's a different situation. But basically the onus is on the player to mark his ball, or excuse me, the onus is on the player hitting the putt to make sure the ball has been marked by his playing partner. Okay, so the ball must be played as lies. If a ball in motion accidentally hits any person or outside influence, the ball must be played as lies except in 2 situations. And this is from anywhere except the putting green. And it comes to rest on a person, in a pocket, on an animal, under an animal. We can get into dangerous animals, but that's a different thing. Or moving outside influence, such as a cart. The player may not must not play the ball as it lies. Instead, the player must take relief. they must drop the original ball or another ball in this relief area. So in the relief area, how you determine the relief area is the reference point is the estimated point right under where the ball first came to rest on the person, animal, or a moving outside influence. So you've seen situations where a ball lands in someone's pocket. They generally tell the person to stop where they are. And that's right under where that person is where you set the relief area. The size of relief area is 1 club length, but with these limits, it must be in the same area of the course as the reference point, and it must not be nearer the hole than the reference point. And when the ball is on a putting green, don't know how this would happen on a putting green, but like most situations, instead of dropping on the putting green, you place.
Yeah, this is Bill. Can I ask a question and go back for a second?
Yeah.
The situation where a player is putting on the putting green, and their opponent, they didn't ask their opponent to mark the ball, and they inadvertently hit their opponent's ball. We mentioned a moment ago that player that hit the opponent's ball gets a 2-stroke penalty. I just want to clarify the outcome then. The opponents whose ball was hit, they get to replace or actually place the ball back where it was on the green. And in stroke play, the player who hit that ball and their ball was deflected, let's say it didn't go in the hole, they have to play it where it comes to rest.
That is correct. Yep.
All right. So they don't replace the ball from where they initially putted from. They play it where it comes to rest.
Okay. You need to be careful about using the word opponent in that scenario. There's not a penalty in match play. If your ball
right. In match play, they lose a hole automatic. That's why I said
no. No, there's not a penalty.
Help me understand what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no penalty in match play for.
There's no penalty in match play if a ball.
Not a penalty. A loss of hole.
Strike. No, there's no penalty in match play if a ball played from the putting green strikes another ball at rest on the putting green.
There is. All right. So what's the outcome there?
There's no penalty. Okay, and you play both balls. You replace the ball that was moved, the ball at rest that was moved, and you play the ball that was in motion as it lies.
No penalty in match play. Okay, why is that different in match play?
Because it's an anomaly. It's just a stroke play issue only.
Okay.
Okay. So exception 2, when the ball played from a putting green accidentally hits any person, animal, or movable obstruction on the putting green, the stroke does not count, and the original ball or another ball must be replaced on its original spot, which if not known must be estimated, except in these 2 cases. If a ball in motion hits another ball at rest or ball marker on putting green, the strokes count and the ball must be played as it lies. Yeah. See for whether penalty applies in stroke play. That's what we just discussed right there. If a ball in motion accidentally hits the flag stick or person attending flag stick, this is covered by Rule 13.2b. That's something for next week or a couple weeks down the line. This rule only applies when it is known or virtually certain that a player's ball in motion was deliberately or deflected or stopped by a person, which is when a person deliberately touches the ball in motion. So if you had a situation where a parent just couldn't help himself, they saw their child's ball towards a penalty area and they jumped in front of it to stop it, like just played goalie for them. Or the ball in motion hits any equipment or other object except a ball marker or another ball at rest before the ball was played or otherwise went in motion, or any person, such as the player's caddy, that a player deliberately positioned or left in a particular location so that the equipment, object, or person might deflect or stop the ball in motion. So let's say that player's got a bunker shot, and on the far side of the hole is a penalty area, water. If the caddy deliberately put his bag there to essentially be a goalie, and the player hit the bag, this is the rule that situation would fall under right there. Okay. Yeah. The exception to this is deals really with concessions. So let's say you got a situation where a player has a putt to tie the hole, and they stroke the putt and it goes past the hole, it's rolling past the hole. His opponent sees it rolling past the hole, knows it's not going to go in, scoops it up with his putter, throws it to him while it's still in motion. This was a thing a few years ago, and they came to the conclusion that if there is if an opponent's ball in motion that is deliberately deflected or stopped at a time when there is no reasonable chance it could be holed, and when done, there is either as a concession or when the ball needed to be holed to tie the hole, it is covered by Rule 3, not by this rule. So that's a situation where it is okay, only in match play, if you see someone pick up a moving ball. But there has to be no reasonable chance it could be holed. So well past the hole, and there's no way that it would roll back or anything like that. Okay, so when a player might get a penalty for deliberately deflecting or stopping a ball in motion. When the penalty applies to the player, a player gets the penalty if he or she deliberately deflects or stops any ball in motion, be it their own, be it another player's, whether they're trying to help or hurt, they get the penalty. And this is true, so that's the second point right there. Again, there's an exception for a ball moving in water. Okay. Okay, so say we do have a situation where a ball was deliberately deflected or stop must be played. If it is known or virtually certain, 95%, that a player's ball in motion was deliberately deflected or stopped by a person, whether or not the ball has been found, it must not be played as a light. Instead, the player must take relief. And this is how, so if they know for certain that, say, a person picked up the ball, put it in their pocket, and walked away, this is how you'd proceed. If you're not on the putting green, hard to imagine this happen on the putting green, the player must take relief based on the estimated spot where the ball would have come to rest if not deflected or stopped. When the ball would have come to rest anywhere on the course, the player must drop the original ball or another ball in the relief area. So the reference point for that relief area is the estimated spot where the ball would have come to rest. And it's a 1 club length, obviously, and it has to stay on the same area of the course and must not be near the hole. If the ball would have come to rest on the putting green, same thing as before, you must place the original ball or another ball on the estimated spot where it come to rest using the procedures. So just like pretty much everything else, if it's going to be on a putting green, you place, you don't drop. And if it's known or virtually certain that the ball would have come to rest out of bounds, then you must operate under the out of bounds rule and take stroke and distance relief.
I have a question.
Yes.
Mr. Jewett might be able to address this. I think it was his quiz that he did for the devilish Nick. Nick sent it out. Was the one where the ball was hit, the spectator picked up the ball and left the course, was virtually certain that that happened. What was the rule there, Mr. Jewett?
I'm not sure that was my quiz, but
was that
sure.
Nick the devil himself?
Yeah. But if it's known or virtually certain that an outside influence takes the ball, then you're going to play it where that happened.
Yep.
As I recall, that Mick was trying to suggest that stroke and distance had to come into play there.
Well, if you didn't know that that if you weren't virtually certain that it occurred, then it would have been stroke and distance.
It's all going to be done within the 3-minute search time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if in his situation, as I recall, again, I don't think it was my quiz. If the search time had expired and then somebody suggested that a spectator or an outside influence took the ball, I think then he was saying that the ball was lost and you have to take stroke and distance.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I don't make devilish quizzes.
Caddy, this is Bob Partridge.
I would not accuse you of that, Lee, but
thank you.
Go ahead, Bob.
Overhead electrical wires, is that usually a local rule if you hit those wires, or does it have to be a local rule?
I believe that is every competition I've ever run and been a part of is treated electrical wires. Sometimes the poles or the structure is a little different, but the wires as an automatic replay. And it's always been on the notice. It's never cited a specific local rule that I can recall, but that is always how it is. It's always how the GAM is going to play it for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Ted, just I really quickly, one quick thing on Doug's question, just to clarify, Rule 11 is talking about when a ball in motion is deflected versus his question was when the ball was at rest. So just there is a difference in how that gets ruled. So people just keep that in mind, that ball in motion versus ball at rest is going to be different.
Thank you.
Did the pigeon catch it in midair, or did it grab it off the ground and fly away with it? That's what's that's what's at play here. But okay, deliberately moving objects or altering conditions to affect ball in motion. When a ball is in motion, the player must not deliberately take any of these actions to affect where that ball, whether the player's own ball or another player's ball, might come to rest. You cannot alter physical conditions by taking any of the actions listed in Rule 8.1, such as replacing a divot, or lift or move a loose impediment. So you stroke a putt, it's on its way. You see a leaf blows in the line of play. The player or caddy cannot pick up the leaf while the ball is in motion, throw it to the side. That's just how it is. Or immovable obstruction. There was a situation, I've searched for video of it. I couldn't find it. I believe it involved Corey Pavin and a caddy, where he had a shot, a chip shot up a shaved hill, and it went up the hill and it was rolling back. And the caddy saw it was probably going to hit a rake that was going to keep it from going in water in a penalty area. And he thought, oh God, that's going to be a penalty if it hits a rake. So he moved the rake and it went in the penalty area. Well, it turns out he actually violated this rule and it went in the penalty area. So he was wrong. He should have just left it there. Now he couldn't obviously throw a rake in front of the ball to keep it from going in the penalty area, but movable obstructions such as a rake, they are, once the ball is in motion, they are there, they are fixed. They cannot be moved by a player or caddy, so. Okay. The exception to this, though, is a flag stick, a ball at rest on the putting green, or another player's equipment. This rule does not prohibit a player from lifting or moving a removed flag stick. So if they take out the flag, they put it behind the hole, they all of a sudden see the ball is heading towards the flag and it's about going to hit it. It is okay for a player or caddy to pick that flag stick up off the ground. If a ball is in motion and you see that it is going to hit a ball at rest on the putting green, they can mark that ball, pick it up, move it while the ball is in motion to avoid penalty for the player that hit the putt, or any other player equipment other than a ball at rest anywhere except on the putting green or a ball marker anywhere on the course. So if there's you got a wedge laying off to the side of the green, you see a ball in motion, might hit it, you can pick up that equipment, that club, and move it before it strikes it deflects the ball. Okay. Yeah, and obviously there you are allowed to attend, remove the flag stick from the hole while a ball is in motion. Okay. Okay, that is actually everything I have, at least. Obviously, you're all welcome to stay on for 20 more minutes or so. We can keep talking. Next week, Kyle's going to have rules 12 and 13, bunkers and putting greens. They'll be same time, same place, same Zoom link. Thanks for everybody. If there's any questions on this, other topics, GAM matters, golf matters, Players Championship picks, Big Ten tournament picks, clubhouse design ideas for Lee Jewett.
Teddy, how's that bun in the oven doing?
So far, so good.
That's good.
Yep. So far, we got a couple pictures taken the other day.
That's cool.
Yep.
Do you know what it is?
So what?
Do you know what it's going to be?
No, we're not finding out.
All right.
It's fun. I just talked to Scott Strickland about this. He was of the same mind that we didn't find out because when people get you gender neutral stuff, so it's guaranteed to be able to be passed down, and they get you all the stuff you need before. And then once the kid comes and they know what that is, they can't help themselves, so they buy you all the stuff, the gender specific stuff for that kid after it's born.
Just make sure the techs and everybody know that, though, Ted. We had a situation when my wife was pregnant with our son that we decided not to find out, and the technician goes, "Oh, I see you're having a boy." Yeah.
And we just had our anatomy scan last week, and we were very clear beforehand on, and so the tech was great. Okay, close your eyes for about 5 seconds, and we did that, and yeah, so it was good. It turned out well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Good job, Teddy. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, well done. See you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
That's not Terry.
Teddy.
Thanks a lot, Ted.
Hey, thank you. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, buddy. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Nice job, Teddy.
Thank you, Barry.
Good job, Teddy.
Thank you, Jack.
Is your boss still in South Carolina? Or was it South Carolina? Where is he at, Teddy?
I don't know.
He went
south. He's
to
back. He's there for the MSU tournament.
Oh, he's down at
Carlton River in South Carolina.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good job, Ted. Thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks, JW. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks, Ted. Nice job. Learned a lot.
Thank you, Maureen. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Teddy.
Thank you, T.
Hey, Teddy, I hate to bring it up, but I've been getting a few emails from the new volunteer referees. Apparently, they were brought in by this guy named JW, and
yes,
they've never seen the man before, and they don't even know if it's a real person or what he looks like, and they're kind of concerned about working their first tournament and not knowing who this JW is. Any response to that?
I just tell them JW is a concept.
Mike, I think it's I think it's better that you know, because they see you in your pink glasses and they automatically take themselves off the list. So it's probably best this way.
You do understand that they went up to $1.25 at the dollar store.
$1.25 store. It's going to be the $2 store soon. Just wait.
Right. Always fun, guys. I'm leaving. Thank you.
Mike,
Okay.
Mike,
Thanks, Mike.
check your text message. I need to know about your background. So it'll drive me
Yes,
crazy.
it's very important.
Jesus.
Lots of money is on the line.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's always the case with those two.
All right. See you later.
Probably wait till everyone gets up. But I talked to Jeff at Twin Lakes and I have some dates we can go over.
Okay. I mean, okay. Let me bring up the calendar.
We want to maybe do this on Teams. I don't know, for the recording for Kyle.
Oh, yeah. Good point. How do I
think everyone's gone there.
Okay.
Like you can.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll hop over.
I'll just end it. We'll do it on Teams.
All right, cool.
Yeah.